Very big weekend coming up, Charlie, British Champions Day. And you've got 5 runners. Godolphin very, very well represented. Let's go through them in chronological order, starting with this sprint. And you've got Creative Force and also Naval Crown. Now, there was only a neck between them when they fought out the finish of the Platinum Jubilee. Is there still only a neck between them, or do you prefer one to the other?
Yeah, like I say, most importantly, it's exciting to be involved in Kipco British Champions Day with hopefully the team of horses we've got. We're going to field on Saturday, starting, as you quite rightly say, with the sprint. Creative Force and Naval Crown. You know, we saw them at Royal Ascot, just a neck between them there. They both came out and ran very creditable races there in the July Cup. From there onwards, we always felt that Creative Force was going to have a break, and we were going to wait for the autumn ground, should we say. Whereas Naval Crown went on to Haydock, again on quick ground, and it was a disappointing run there. But they go into this weekend in great form. We took them to Newmarket for a racecourse gallop. Delighted with the pair of them. How do you decide for one or split one from the other? I mean, you have to say that one's been there and done it on that occasion and on the ground that we potentially were going to be encountering on Saturday in Creative Force. So that's probably his edge angle over Naval Crown, and but I couldn't be any happier with the way the pair of them are going into the event.
So Creative Force won this race last year. Is it his time of the year? Does he sort of peak at this time, or is he a horse who holds his form the whole season?
I think we saw that at Royal Ascot. He was at the top of his form there, midsummer there, on quick ground. And again, like I say, putting in another solid run there in the July Cup. But we know that he brings more to the table for sure with ease in the conditions. So therefore, that's why we made that decision to give him that break and wait for this target. And like I say, his preparation's gone well. He's come out of that Newmarket gallop in great shape, and for me, he's the favourite they've all got to beat.
Should be a terrific race. Let's go on to the fillies and mares, and you've got Eternal Pearl, which I think, looking at her profile, she's one who's just kept on improving at every start.
That's right. You see that in her profile of, as you say, what she's done on the track, but at home we see that as a physical as well. She's a nice, Frankel filly there out of one of our homebred mares there that's just strengthening throughout the year, and that's why we purposely not sort of dipped our toe in at Group 1 level already, because we wanted to give her all that time to develop. And she goes in there with a lovely profile. I mean, we know this is her big step up now from obviously winning her last 2 races at Group 3 level, stepping up to Group 1 level, and but she goes there in great order, and I feel we've minded her in the right manner, that she's going to turn up there with her best chance to put herself up on the top table.
On ratings, and she's still got improvement in her. She's right there, isn't she?
Well, for sure. And she's a filly that she's ran on soft ground there at Goodwood mid-season there, and handled the conditions there. So ground-wise, we're quite relaxed on what we're going to potentially encounter the weekend. But like I say, as a profile, she's got a bit to find, but she's going in the right. We don't know where her ceiling is, as we say, as yet.
Okay, let's go on to the mile now, and this is the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. And Modern Games, a really cracking 3-year-old. I mean, he's come out, he's won the French Guineas, he's run a place in the French Derby. Since then, he's had rather an unusual sort of program, really.
Well, like I say, he didn't stay in the French Derby there, admittedly beaten by a very good horse in Valdini. We then, at the time, we had that collection of horses that we were trying to keep them apart. So we decided to drop him back to the 7 there at Deauville, and he just found that on the sharp side, to be honest. He then stepped back up to the mile in the Sussex, and we saw put up a fantastic performance, finishing second to Baid. Probably one of his career best performances, realistically. The plan was always then to go to Canada. Even before the Sussex, was the long-term plan was Canada, and then onto the Breeders' Cup.
And Canada was because it was a stepping stone to the Breeders' Cup. So you've
Correct.
interrupted that preparation in some way by coming back here.
Yes, I mean, this was at the time, not saying it wasn't on our radar, but as we know, Jim, the ground conditions this time of year can change quite quickly. But as we stand at the moment, the forecast looks as though it's settled a little bit more than we had predicted, and so therefore he's going to be left in on Saturday, and if it's no worse than good to soft with the odd patch there, then I would imagine he'll take his chance. If it's soft ground, he's most likely won't be a starter on the day.
And obviously, it is a stepping stone. If he does run, it is still a stepping stone to the Breeders'.
Yeah, as we know, we can do that. You can do Champions Day onto Breeders' Cup. It's been done many times before, and he's a horse that's come off a nice break as well. Where after Goodwood, in the Sussex there, he had a nice break. He found it all very easy in Canada, as we all saw, and so it doesn't worry me at all. Going into Saturday and then going on to the Breeders' Cup thereon.
And so we now move on to the big one, and this is the Champion Stakes, Group 1, mile and a quarter, and you've got Adayar lining up against Baaeed. Now, spoken of as one of the great races in prospect for many years. How do you feel about it going into the big race?
Look, he's in great shape. As we all know, if we went to Doncaster for conditions race, we know what he beat. It was never going to be a sort of a field that we're going to meet on Saturday, but he couldn't have done it any easier. Most importantly, what we wanted out of it for the horse. He got all of his confidence back, get the confidence back, and not have a hard race. When you've been off for as long as he had, you don't want to be having a hard first start and then potentially backing up. What some people come and say there could be a bounce factor involved. He's had harder home gallops than he did on the race course there at Doncaster. So, theoretically, we're going into this weekend off of as our first start for the year, really, against proper competition. Most importantly, against Baaeed. So we all know that's going to be it's a huge challenge for him and a huge task. But we can't be any happier with him. And we've seen what this horse can do. He's a past Derby winner and a King George winner, and he looks in great shape.
Looking at last year, he ran in the race last year. He ran 5th, but he came to the race. Would you say, in retrospect, he came there at the end of a pretty strenuous campaign? This year is going to be very different.
For sure, and that was noticeable in the Champion Stakes last year. Now we went into the Arc, had missed our prep for the Arc, as we know, and it was very testing conditions on the day. In a race that wasn't run to suit our horse. We ended up being on the front. William, would in hindsight would say that's where he didn't want to be. But he jumped well and was from a wideish draw that he got to the front. And conditions and probably that missing the prep race going into the Arc told in the end. Anyway, he came out of the race. We have to say he came out of the race well enough. And so therefore, the decision was made to then drop back to the 10 for the Champions Stakes there. We encountered the same conditions again, not as probably as heavy as it was in the Arc, but it was soft conditions on Champions Day, and he ran like a horse. You could just see that last start had sort of got to him slightly. He still put up a creditable performance, but. Going into it this year, it's a different ball game altogether. We're going into it fresh and ready, and very much looking forward to it.
And of course, it's the race, as I've said, because of the clash with Baaeed. Now, you've said before on this podcast or on this website that your respect for Baaeed is enormous. I know that, but how are you feeling about this clash at this time of the year? You're coming in as a fresh horse, relatively, against Baaeed with this huge reputation. How do you feel about that? Can you beat him?
Time will tell, but we're excited. And at the end of the day, we all know it's good for racing to see two good horses. They're not just the only horse in the field. There's others in there that you can make cases for in ground conditions that are going to suit possibly them more than some of the others. So in the race, so it's a great race collectively. But going in there with Adayar, again, as I say, what he's done as a 3-year-old, taking on the great Baaeed, unbeaten in his 10 starts to date, it is exciting. Can we beat him? you've picked up on the positives from our point of view. We're going in there as a fresher horse this year, in conditions that we're quite relaxed on. If it does get softer come Saturday afternoon, that won't worry me. At a trip that I'm confident he's going to hopefully get his opportunity to win at that trip at Group 1 level. As I say, he's done it at a lesser level over the 10 there, but at his 2 Group 1 starts and Group 1 wins, should I say, have been at 1.5 miles. So without going on and doing too much about it, we're excited. He goes there in great order. I think it's going to be a fantastic race, and it's a race that I'm sure everyone hopefully is going to go down in history books as being one of the great races that we've seen over the past few years.